The first law arrives with teeth, and dawn bleeds. Dust whips across the savannah as thunder murmurs beyond the ridge, and the grass shivers like a warning drum. Mara said, "Stay close," and the cub pressed into her ribs, a heartbeat learning another heartbeat. A shadow split from the thorn scrub, fast, lean, and hungry, and the air thinned around them. Koda squeaked, a half-roar, half-breath, and fear stitched itself into his small chest. Rook's laugh rose like broken metal, and the land seemed to tilt toward his jaws. A hornbill burst upward, scattering blue light, and Mara pivoted, muscle rippling, tail carving a threat through dust. Koda stumbled, paws too soft for this harsh morning, and the ground struck him like the truth. Mara said, "Up," and her voice was a rope thrown across a river. The sky peeled open with a pale sun, cold and merciless, and every shadow looked like a verdict. Koda found his feet and the world kept moving, because mercy has no time card here. The storm's breath curls colder, and the plain smells of wet iron. Mara said, "Move with me," and they slide along the grass line, keeping the wind to their backs. Rook shadows them at an angle, patient as a ticking snare. Koda tries to copy the low glide, but his steps drum a clumsy rhythm. A lark rises, then drops as if the sky rejected it. Mara slows, reading the land like scripture written in tracks and heat. A termite mound offers height, but it also offers silhouette and danger. Rook tests the space, drifting left, then right, as if tracing a closing door. Koda said, "I can roar," and his breath breaks on the word and disappears into wind. They skirt an old river scar, where cracked clay remembers vanished rain. Mara said, "Listen," and the world reduces to insect click and distant thunderbone. Koda hears his pulse booming like a drum inside a cave. Rook's outline fades behind thorn, then blooms again, closer, and the air narrows. A gust drags the scent of carrion, and vultures turn slow circles like minutes passing. Mara marks escape lines with tiny shifts of shoulder. Koda copies, late but trying, hunger buzzing in his belly. Rook laughs once, a hinge with no oil, and silence falls behind it like a gate. The first test arrives not with teeth but with emptiness. Mara stalls at a bald patch where scent trails vanish into hot dust. Koda noses the ground and tastes only grit and a lesson he did not ask for. Rook slows, comforted by the arithmetic of hunger and distance. Mara said, "Trust the wind," and shifts to catch a whisper threading the grass. It speaks of water left in stone bowls where shade survives. Koda swallows hope as if it might be food. Rook drifts nearer, collecting their hesitation like a tax he has already spent. They reach the rocks where rain lingers in patient hollows. Mara said, "Drink, then watch," and the order feels like a blessing with barbs. Koda laps clumsily and shivers as cool steadies his chest. A cloud's edge slides, and the light hardens across stone. Rook halts at the rim of smell, testing the rule of risk and reward. Mara shifts to the shadow side and her ribs sigh. Koda said, "I will roar," and the word tastes less like fear and more like a promise to the sky. The wind answers with grit, and the morning moves on. The grass sways with a weary sigh, and the air tastes of dust and memory. Mara lowers her head, her eyes softened with something older than fear. She said, "Every step is written before you take it," and the words sink into Koda's small ears like stone into water. The cub presses close, paws uncertain, eyes wide with both wonder and doubt. Shadows move across the plain, vultures circling higher, silent witnesses to stories that often end too soon. Koda said, "Will I be strong?" And his question hangs fragile, a leaf trembling before a storm. Mara brushes her tail against him, a quiet answer more ancient than speech. The sky breaks open with a muted sun, and their shapes stretch long and thin against the earth. Koda leans into her warmth, learning the weight of love, the burden of survival, and the fragile thread binding them both to dawn's edge. The land hushes as if listening. Mara guides Koda toward a shallow ridge where wind sculpts old bones into sand. Her stride is measured, shoulders carry invisible stories. She said, "Strength is not in claws but in patience." Koda steps too quickly, stumbles, then recovers, his breath sharp against the air. Above them the sky tilts blue into gray, promising storms yet to come. A hawk screams and dives, stitching silence with its cry. Rook lingers beyond the ridge, his shadow fading in and out of the scrub, waiting for the stumble that becomes a fall. Mara does not look back, but her ears track every whisper. Koda whispers, "I will wait," testing patience as though it were another muscle to grow. A pool of shade clings beneath a lone acacia, its roots coiled like secrets. Mara halts there, shoulders easing for the first time since dawn. She lowers herself, bones settling into earth's cradle, and Koda climbs awkwardly onto her flank. He presses his nose to her mane, finding comfort in the warmth. Mara said even shadows teach, her tone soft as wind. The cub closes his eyes, imagining courage curling inside him like flame. The plain exhales with cicadas buzzing in rhythm, the sound of persistence. For a heartbeat, the predator's hunger is only a memory, and silence becomes sanctuary. But silence is never permanent here. A crow lands nearby, its black eyes gleaming, its caw warning that rest is always borrowed. The wind turns, carrying with it the stench of decay, a reminder carved into every breath. Mara rises again, nudging Koda to his paws. She said, "You must know the scent of danger before it knows you." The cub wrinkles his nose, eyes darting, ears twitching with unease. The ridge behind them glows faint with heat mirage, hiding what stalks beyond. Rook's laugh drifts faintly, rust on old hinges. Koda shivers, his claws flexing in dust that gives no strength. Mara's gaze pierces distance, her body taut with the silent map only she can read. A silence falls heavy, the world bracing for the next note in a song of survival. They find the bones scattered in the grass, ribs rising like broken fences. Mara circles them once, lowering her head in recognition of stories ended. She said, "Every mark is a lesson," her voice heavy as stone. Koda steps gingerly between hollowed skulls, his paws echoing history. He touches one with his nose and recoils at the cold truth beneath sun. The silence sharpens, broken only by insects carving hymns from the dead. Overhead, clouds spread wider, dragging light into thin ribbons. Koda whispers, "I will remember," and the words carry small but unbroken into the empty ribs of the fallen. The air sharpens as if cut by unseen blades, and the savannah feels restless under swollen clouds. Mara leads Koda toward a hollow where the grass whispers of danger. She said, "Stay close," her voice taut as sinew stretched too thin. Koda stumbles but forces his paws to steady, his breath a trembling echo in the silence. Rook prowls the ridgeline, his shadows swelling and shrinking as if stitched to the storm. Thunder rolls deep in the earth, and vultures drift lower, drawn to anticipation. Mara bares her teeth at the horizon, knowing predators sharpen patience into weapons. Koda said, "I am not afraid," though the tremor in his throat betrays the truth. The world listens, waiting for the first strike, and every heartbeat feels stolen from a future not promised. The storm arrives with a scream, tearing leaves from branches and driving grit into eyes. Mara shields Koda with her body, her frame bending but unbroken. She said, "Learn the storm's rhythm. It will test you but also hide you." Koda presses beneath her flank, his small frame vibrating with fear. Lightning splits the sky, jagged light etching Rook's form as he edges closer, his eyes gleaming with cruel patience. The ground shudders under thunder, and the air tastes of metal and rain. Mara's claws dig trenches in the soil, anchoring them against the gale. Koda said, "I will not fall, though the wind pulls at him like greedy hands." The plain has become a battlefield of elements and hunger, and survival balances on a knife's edge. When the storm breaks, hunger remains. Mara drives Koda toward a thicket where antelope linger, their ears twitching, bodies tight with fear. She said, "Watch, and remember," as her body sinks low into the grass. Koda mirrors clumsily, tail twitching, eyes locked on the herd. The wind favors them, but the herd senses shadows moving. Rook circles wider, drawn to chaos, his laughter rasping like broken bark. Mara waits for silence to thicken, then explodes forward, muscles flaring with lethal grace. Koda freezes, breath held, torn between fear and awe. Antelope scatter in waves, hooves drumming earth into thunder. The chase is not only for prey, but for lessons carved in dust and blood. The chase tears the silence apart, bodies colliding with speed and fear. Mara lunges, claws slicing through grass, missing her target by inches. Dust bursts upward, golden clouds obscuring vision. Koda stares wide-eyed, heart slamming against his chest, the rhythm of prey and predator burning into him. Rook joins the chaos, snapping at heels, a thief of opportunity. Mara growls, a thunderous sound cutting through the herd's panic. She said, "Survival is not clean," her voice swallowed by the storm of hooves. Koda scrambles forward, nearly trampled, but finds strength to rise again. Blood spills where prey falls, and the ground drinks greedily. Nature has no pause for innocence, only proof of endurance. The herd vanishes, silence bleeding into the torn grass. Mara pants, chest rising and falling, like a drum beaten too long. She said, "Not every hunt ends in triumph," her eyes heavy with fatigue and fire. Koda creeps close, fur matted with dust, his paws trembling but his gaze steady. Rook lingers at the edge, jaws wet, laughing softly at their loss. The sky bruises into purple, evening crawling fast over the plain. Mara touches her nose to Koda's head, a gesture both fragile and fierce. Koda said, I will learn," his words trembling but certain. The horizon swallows the light, and night sharpens every shadow into a blade. The air grows heavy, as if carrying secrets, and silence presses against the savanna like a hand smothering breath. Mara halts, her eyes fixed on the horizon where Rook's shape wavers with the heat. She said, "Not all enemies come with hunger." Koda blinks confused, his ears flicking to every sound that doesn't belong. The wind carries not one scent, but many, layered with fear and survival. From the shadows emerges another lion, lean and scarred, his mane ragged like old fire. His name is Kale, a rival who mirrors strength but lacks mercy. Mara lowers her head in wary recognition, and the balance shifts. Koda whispers, "Is he like us?" And Mara does not answer, for the truth cuts deeper. Sometimes the greatest danger wears the same skin as family. Kale approaches with slow steps, his eyes cold embers that burn without flame. Mara growls low, her body blocking Koda like a wall of muscle and will. Kale said, "This ground is mine," his voice cracked yet unyielding. Dust shifts under his paws, carrying the scent of betrayal. Koda trembles but stands taller, his gaze darting between them, heart caught in an ancient rivalry he cannot yet name. Mara answers with silence, her stare harder than claws, her breath steady as stone. Above them, vultures spiral tighter, sensing not prey but fracture. Koda whispers, "He is us but not ours," and the truth coils like a thorn inside him. The distance collapses with a single breath, and Kale lunges. Mara meets him head-on, bodies colliding with the weight of thunder. Dust erupts, the plain shattering into chaos. Koda cries out but does not move, rooted in fear and awe. Kale snaps his jaws near Mara's throat, teeth flashing like blades. Mara claws back, her growl rolling across the horizon like a storm-given voice. Kale said, "Yield or fall," and the words grind against her like stone. Koda whispers, "Don't," his plea swallowed by the crash of battle. The savanna watches without pity, its silence a verdict. The fight carves blood into dust, each strike a language older than words. Mara drags her claws across Kale's flank, but his jaws clamp hard on her shoulder. She roars, pain slicing the horizon, yet she refuses to fall. Koda trembles, his chest heaving, every breath a desperate lesson. Kale growls, this is the law, his grip unyielding. Mara rips free, fur torn, blood darkening her side, and answers, then the law will bleed. The world narrows to their struggle, a storm within a storm. Koda whispers, strength is not claws but heart, echoing words Mara once spoke, and the air feels heavier with meaning. The clash halts as Kale stumbles, his breath ragged, blood dripping into earth's cracks. Mara stands battered but unbroken, her chest heaving, her eyes locked not on victory but survival. She said, this land is no one's, only borrowed. Kale snarls once more, then retreats, his shadow swallowed by the darkening horizon. Koda runs to Mara, pressing against her trembling side, his small body learning the price of endurance. The vultures wheel higher, denied their feast, their cries fading into distance. Night folds across the savannah, and silence reclaims its throne. Koda whispers, I will remember, and his words feel like roots finding soil. Night collapses into dawn, and the savannah still smells of blood and dust. Mara limps forward, her body scarred but unyielding, her breath a furnace of survival. Koda trails behind, his steps heavier now, carrying the weight of lessons carved in pain. She said, the fight is never finished, and the words hang like claws against the sky. Rook circles again, his eyes glittering with opportunity, patient as always. Thunder has passed, yet silence is sharper than any storm. Koda whispers, I will roar, his voice trembling but louder than before. The horizon burns orange, promising hope, but predators do not bow to light. The climax waits like an ambush, and every heartbeat counts down. The silence snaps as antelope burst from cover, their panic filling the air. Mara lowers herself into a crouch, muscles screaming but still obeying. She said, this is the moment, and her body coils like lightning waiting to strike. Koda mirrors her, clumsy but burning with resolve, his eyes wide with hunger for both prey and proof. Rook darts in from the edge, aiming to steal what is not his. The ground shakes with hooves, dust blinding, breath choking. Koda whispers, I see them, his voice breaking into the rhythm of pursuit. The savannah transforms into a crucible, every sound sharpened into survival's final chorus. The chase ignites, prey and predator colliding in a storm of speed and fear. Mara surges forward, her breath ragged but unrelenting, claws striking earth like war drums. Koda stumbles but forces himself onward, dust clinging to his fur. Rook weaves through chaos, his jaws snapping at shadows, waiting for weakness to spill into opportunity. Mara roars, the sound ripping the horizon apart. She said, take what the land gives, her voice buried inside the violence of movement. Koda whispers, I will, his lungs burning with the weight of the test. The climax is no longer distant, it is now, and it devours everything. A young antelope falls, tangled in its own panic, and Mara strikes with finality, jaws clamping as dust explodes upward. Koda halts, his eyes locked on death made real, his body trembling between fear and pride. Rook lunges to steal, snapping at Mara's flank, but she wheels and roars with fury that shatters the air. He recoils, defeated for now, his laugh trailing bitter in the wind. Mara said, survival is earned, her voice soaked in blood and breath. Koda whispers, I understand, though his chest still shakes. The climax is a lesson written in dust and sinew, one no dawn can erase. The dust settles, silence spreading wide, as the savannah reclaims its stillness. Mara stands over the fallen prey, panting, blood dripping like a promise paid. Koda creeps forward, his paws hesitant but his eyes steady, absorbing the price of survival. Rook vanishes into the distance, a shadow postponed, not defeated. Mara lowers her head, touching Koda with blood-warmed breath. She said, now you know, her voice soft but edged with iron. Koda whispers, I will never forget, and the words carve themselves into the air. The climax fades into aftermath, yet its echo clings, binding them tighter to the law of the wild. The sun lowers and the air carries the weight of battles survived. Mara's body trembles, her wounds burning, but her stance unbroken. Koda stays close, his small steps steady, his eyes tracing the fading horizon. She said, "Every dawn asks a price, and every dusk delivers the debt." The silence is thick, filled with echoes of thunder and blood. Rook lurks far behind, unwilling to give up his hunt, his patience sharper than teeth. Koda whispers, "We are still here," his voice quivering but louder than before. The savannah sighs, a world both merciless and eternal, waiting to claim or spare. They reach a hollow where shadows pool, a place that smells of water once held but now gone. Mara lowers her head, eyes scanning tracks carved deep into dust. She said, "Others walked this path and did not return." Koda steps into a print larger than his paw, realizing the scale of survival. The silence hums, broken by a distant cry too faint to claim. Rook's laughter floats on the wind, mocking and promising more trials. Koda whispers, "We will not vanish," his tone stiff with fragile courage. The hollow feels haunted, filled with stories of those claimed by the same land. The storm returns in fragments, rain falling in sharp needles that vanish as quickly as they appear. Mara tilts her head, letting drops strike her face, her eyes fierce even in pain. She said, "The sky cleans but also wounds." Koda blinks at the cold sting, shaking his head, learning that even water can strike. Rook prowls closer, his form blurred by rain streaks, his patience unwavering. Thunder cracks again, but weaker, as if exhausted by its own violence. Koda whispers, "I will endure," his voice blending with rain and wind. The savannah becomes a battlefield where elements fight as hard as predators. The carcass of their earlier hunt lies stripped, bones gleaming pale under fading light. Mara circles it once, then settles nearby, her ribs rising and falling like heavy drums. She said, "Every victory fades to ash." Koda steps forward, his paw brushing the empty ribcage, his eyes tracing the cost of survival. Rook lingers just beyond, waiting for weakness, his shadow married to the dark. The vultures return, their wings black against a bruised sky. Koda whispers, "We took, and now we give," his voice thin but steady. The savannah keeps no memory of triumph, only the weight of what remains. Night swallows the horizon, stars stitching the sky like cold fire. Mara lies down at last, her breath deep but jagged, the day's weight pressing into her bones. She said, "Tomorrow will come whether we do or not." Koda curls beside her, pressing his body into her warmth, his heartbeat echoing hers. Rook fades into the night, unseen but never gone, his presence carved into silence. Crickets sing their endless chorus, filling the void left by thunder and roars. Koda whispers, "I will rise," his words fragile yet forged in certainty. The savannah answers with silence, eternal and absolute. Dawn rises without mercy, its pale light spreading like fire across the plain. Mara stirs weakly, her body carved by wounds and time, but her gaze steady. She said, "This day is not ours, it is borrowed." Koda leans into her, small but unyielding, his chest pounding with a rhythm forged from trial. Rook lingers beyond the eternal shadow, waiting for weakness that may never come. The savannah holds its breath, as if uncertain who belongs and who must fade. Koda whispers, "We will endure," and the air trembles with fragile certainty, carrying the weight of a promise too heavy for his size. The plain awakens with sound, birds breaking silence, insects humming life into the air. Mara rises slowly, her breath ragged but her body refusing surrender. She said, "Stand, Koda, for the world does not wait." The cub stumbles to his feet, paws clumsy yet firm, eyes catching fire in the new sun. Rook fades back into brush, his patience eternal, knowing his time will come again. The horizon stretches endless, but for a moment, it feels conquerable. Koda whispers, I will walk beside you, and his words tether him to survival's path. They cross a ridge where bones lie scattered, reminders etched into the land. Mara pauses, her gaze fixed on skulls bleached by endless suns. She said, "All things end, but not all are forgotten." Koda presses his paw into the dust, his eyes fierce as if claiming memory itself. The vultures wheel above, but keep their distance, sensing strength where weakness once lingered. The silence here feels sacred, more warning than threat. Koda whispers, "I will carry this," and the air shifts, acknowledging his vow. The wind turns gentle, carrying scents of distant rain and hidden grasslands. Mara halts, her body swaying with exhaustion, yet her eyes soften with something like peace. She said, "You will walk farther than I." Koda blinks, his heart pounding with the weight of farewell he does not yet understand. The sky darkens in patches, clouds moving like restless guardians. Rook no longer stalks close, his shape swallowed by distance, his patience postponed. Koda whispers, "Then I will walk for us, and the land feels less empty." Night falls one final time, and silence deepens into eternity. Mara lies still, her breath fading into the grass, her body finally surrendering what her will could not. Koda curls against her, his small frame shivering, his eyes wide with grief and fire. She said once, "The world remembers strength in silence," and the words echo now, etched into him. Rook is gone, the plain holding only the weight of absence. Koda whispers, "I will roar," and his voice cuts through the night, small yet unyielding. The stars flicker brighter, as if listening, and the echo lingers forever.